Hi everyone, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my October reading wrap up. As you can tell, we are in a new location. I'm using my bookshelves in my living room for a backdrop. This is mostly for lighting reasons. Just like my bedroom was just not getting enough light, I believe was the issue, and it just caused the image to not be as crisp. Especially using a ring light, something was going on there where it just was making the image not look as clear as I wanted it to. So if you agree with me, or if you don't think that this is working, let me know. I am trying to just get back to a better image quality. So as always, we're going to start off with manga first. And so I have Yona of the Dawn, volume 32. This is a series I've been collecting for many years now. It is a shoujo romance fantasy type series, and it's following a young girl who has to flee her kingdom, flee her castle after a coup happens, and subsequently she is kind of forced to go through a big character arc journey, and I love it. It's so good. There's a reason why I've been reading it for so long. So I think from here I'm going to go in order of books I enjoyed the least to books I enjoyed the most, just so that we can end on a positive note. So without further ado, here is my least favorite book of the month, and that would be Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper, and this is an adult romance witchy Halloween read. It's basically like a Hallmark, but one, queer, and two, witchy instead of like Christmassy. To get more into the synopsis, it is about a young witch who is like 26-ish, and she is traveling back to her hometown to complete this ritual to help with this competition that happens every like 100 years. She's a girl from the big city kind of situation, but falling back in love with her hometown and meeting some familiar faces that she thought she would never have a chance with. And so I enjoyed this. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, but it is my least favorite book of the month, and that's just because I don't think I enjoy just straight up adult romance like this. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. They just don't fill the hole inside of me, if that makes sense. I think this was a lot of fun. It was really cute. It did everything plot-wise, romance-wise, pretty standardly, but it also, it did it well. There was nothing wrong with this. I honestly just think I would have liked this a lot more if I was watching a movie. For whatever reason, just romance, straight up romance, just is boring to me. Even if it's queer and witchy, it's just, I don't know, this was fine. It did what it was supposed to do, but I just couldn't get invested in it, and I wish I could. But this is a movie. This as a little like mini series for Halloween on like Netflix or something would be very cute, and I would be very interested in that. And the next book I have is The Hollow Heart by Marie Rutowski, which is the second and sequel and finishing novel in her spin-off duology of the Winter's Curse series. This is the sequel to The Midnight Lie, and I actually did an entire review talking about this on my channel, so I will link that in the little card thing, and you can go watch that if you're interested in more of my spoilery opinions. But this was fine. I gave it a very generous like 3.75 stars, somewhere in that range. 3.9 stars, I don't know. It was fine. I think for the first like 3/4 of the novel, I was really into it, but the ending was just really rushed, and it felt like there were a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of plot threads that really could have been developed into something even better. It felt like it was the second book in the series rather than like a finale. It felt like there should have been 3 books in this series, or that this one should have been a lot longer. Overall, there's a lot I love about the series, but again, check out my review if you want more in-depth reasons as to why I didn't love this. But this is a YA queer fantasy story, and basically the first book, The Midnight Lie, is about our main character, Nareem, who lives in a magical city where there is a very strict caste system. And Nareem comes from the poorest caste, which means she has the most restrictions upon her, and it's her kind of figuring out the secrets of this city, the reasons why things happen, but also figuring out things about herself and falling in love with this strange traveling rogue that has come into the city. But overall, the series is good. Just this final book, the last 50 pages, were kind of disappointing. The next book I have on here here is The Marrow Thieves, which I gave like a 4 out of 5 stars to. This is a YA dystopian story, and it is following a young man through like his boyhood to adulthood, living in this dystopian world where he is on the run from the government because the government takes indigenous folks and basically harvests them for their bone marrow. And I really enjoyed this. It reminded me a lot of the older style of YA middle grade, where middle grade and YA kind of blended the line between each other a little bit more. I'm thinking like early 2000s before the Twilight craze, where YA wasn't as defined as it is now. In a lot of ways, just like the whimsical storytelling style, the things that were happening felt very like middle grade, very much like The Giver or something like that. But it definitely does feel like it should be read for older people because it is very dystopian, it is very harrowing, and like the things that happen, not that kids couldn't handle it, but the things that happen are put into detail, which definitely I think makes it more appropriate for a older audience. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. Again, I really enjoyed like that kind of nostalgic feeling of reading something that felt like it was from the early 2000s. This was written in 2017 though, so like the writing was very beautiful, very lyrical, which I really enjoyed. And yeah, the story was harrowing, but I really enjoyed it and thought it was a really well done little short novel. The next 2 books I have are the next 2 books in the Wayfarer series. This is book 2, which is A Close and Common Orbit, and this is book 3, A Record of a Spaceborne Few, both by Becky Chambers, again a part of the Wayfarer series. And the Wayfarer series is a hopecore sci-fi, I think that's what it's called. Basically, it is slice of life where things are very optimistic instead of like a first encounter story or just like a devastating dystopian story or a space opera. Things are very down to earth. It is just following people's daily lives, but it's not down to earth because it is set in space. They are companion series, which means that each book follows a different cast, a different set of characters, a different protagonist, and they're not necessarily super related to each other. So this book, A Close and Common Orbit, follows an AI as she's trying to settle into her body, trying to find her place in the world. I gave this a full 5 stars. I just really loved the narrative of this story, what was happening. Basically nothing was happening, but also so much internal character work was happening, so I was just enjoying everything about this. This has a dual perspective between the past with another character and the future, present, the AI character, which I really loved that split timeline. Again, it's just slice of life. It's just this woman living her life, trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life, so I really enjoyed that. I really loved this book. And then Record of a Spaceborne Few is following a bigger cast of characters, more perspectives, and it's all these different characters living on the Earth and Space Fleet, which is supposedly like the fleet that left Earth to find new planets, to find a new home. And so the fleet now in the future is kind of a desolate place. A lot of people are always leaving to go to planets, to go find places elsewhere in the galaxy to live. But we're following the characters that live there, that want to leave there, that want to stay there, that want to come there, and just the way that this story interweaves is very interesting. I gave this like a 4.5 stars. Definitely not my favorite in this series, but I really loved in the end what this one had to say, and I really loved how different the perspectives were and how their lives intersected. I think that's what I love about the series overall, is that the characters are all so different from each other. We have aliens, we have elderly characters as main protagonists, we have younger characters as main protagonists, we have straight characters, we have queer characters, we have everything in this series, and it's just really fascinating and lovely to read. And again, just it's slice of life in space. You got the adventure, you got the fun, but you also have the characters learning about themselves. And the final book I'm going to talk about, hopefully before my camera dies, is Parables of the Talent by Octavia Butler. And this is a dystopian novel and the second and final concluding novel in the Parables series. And this is a dystopian that is a little too close to home. Oh my god. There are just way too many similarities to our own current timeline, and it is scary. But this takes place in a post-apocalyptic world, and it's following our main character Lauren as she kind of discovers herself, as she survives in this enclosed little community, as she decides that they need to branch out and they need to escape this before something bad happens to them. The US has gone to shit around them. There are just so many parallels to our world, and it is is so scary. This book in particular was terrifying, which is why I gave it the full 5 stars. It was so intriguing, but also, again, terrifying. There is an evil, like, Christian president who says, "Make America great again," like, that's literally in the book. And this was written long before Trump, so it is absolutely frightening, utterly devastating and terrifying to read. I particularly like this novel because we got different perspectives. We got Lauren's journal entries like the first book, but we also got perspective of her daughter and her husband. It was just really nice to see more perspectives, to open up the world, and to see more of her and her story. And I really, really love this, and I would highly, highly recommend Octavia Butler's work because I am very invested in all of her books, and this one in particular just really, really, really worked. But yes, those are all the books that I read in the month of October. I would love to know if you read anything this month, what you enjoyed, what didn't work for you. I'd love to know. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading.